The wind sliced through the ruins, carrying fragments of ancient times lost to the ages. Draxen Cairn walked among the wreckage of the burned lands, his gaze fixed on the shadows that shifted in the distance. Each step he took was a reminder of a past he tried to forget. He didn't care anymore about old stories or the relics that traders hawked like treasures. He was a hunter, and that was all that mattered now. Until, on that day, the coin appeared. An ancient coin with the symbol of the heart of Emberis engraved on its surface, burning with a fiery intensity that seemed to beckon him to uncover its secrets. When Draxen grabbed the coin, a strange feeling washed over him. It was as if something was about to be revealed, something he wasn't ready to face. It didn't take long before the empty streets of the burned lands became a maze, where every corner seemed to hide a mystery. He knew he couldn't run anymore. Fate had found him once again. It was at this moment that Nyra Velen appeared. She stepped out from the shadows, her hair as dark as the night and her eyes filled with a knowledge Draxen couldn't comprehend. She was an exiled alchemist, and her secrets were as forbidden as the flames she controlled. Her paths, no matter how twisted, were now intertwined with his. What he didn't know was that she, too, carried deep scars, and that their destinies were connected in ways neither of them could understand. The two exchanged a long look, and the silence between them was thick with meaning. Nyra knew more than she let on. And Draxen, though skeptical, felt she had something to offer. What he didn't know was that the coin wasn't just any relic. It was the key to something much bigger, something that could change their fates forever. Without a word, Nyra moved closer and with a subtle gesture pointed toward the horizon. "Valkarath," she said, her voice soft but carrying the weight of ancient authority. "There are the answers you seek. But know this, what you are after comes at a price." The heart of Emberis was never found by chance. Draxen knew his journey had only just begun. He didn't know what he would find in Valkarath, but he felt that, somehow, his past and his destiny were tied to that forgotten city, to the ruins that held secrets long buried. And something in the shadows was already watching them, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. The winds of the burned lands grew stronger, and the dust kicked up by Draxen and Nyra's movements seemed to form a veil, hiding the future that awaited them. The flames of the past were about to reignite, and with them, the fate of both would be sealed. The dust in the ruins of Valkarath rose like a curtain, hiding the mysteries of a forgotten time. Draxen and Nyra moved through the crumbling columns, each step heavier than the last, not only from the physical weight of the ancient stones but from the sensation that something was watching them. A shadow, perhaps, hiding in the cracks of time. They knew something was wrong, but their quest for the answers that would lead them to the heart of Emberis couldn't be interrupted. The coin, with its burning symbol, burned like a reminder of the fate approaching, a call that couldn't be ignored. The Ash Guardian, as the ancient records described, was a creature of legend, something that should have remained dormant in the depths of history. But as Draxen and Nyra ventured deeper into the ruins, something was rising. What they were looking for wasn't just a piece of metal or a random inscription. It was something that connected them to an ancient past, something that transcended the simple search for power. And the shadows began to stir around them, as if the stone walls themselves had come alive, telling a story that no one had dared to hear for centuries. Nyra looked at Draxen, fear mingling with curiosity in her eyes. "Do you feel that? We're being watched." Her voice, though firm, betrayed an unease she rarely showed. The primordial flames were closer than ever. And the heart of Emberis, she knew, was the key to everything. But every step toward it seemed to increase the pressure on both of them, as if the temple itself were closing in around them. Draxen nodded, his senses sharpening, detecting something more. "We're not alone," he said, his voice thick with tension. He reached out, touching one of the inscriptions on a wall, the ancient words almost whispering in his ears. The prophecy was unfolding before them, but the truth was still hidden in the shadows. As they delved deeper into the ruins, the air grew heavier, laden with an ancient presence. The Guardians of Ash were waking. Draxen knew this, but something inside him kept him from turning back. It was as if his own bloodline was calling out to him, connecting him to what was about to happen. "These Guardians, they're not just legends, are they?" Nyra asked, her voice a mix of skepticism and fear. Draxen looked at her with a heavy gaze. "No, Nyra. They're real. And they're not happy to see us here." The echo of their words seemed to fade away into the vastness of the ruins, but the feeling that something was about to manifest grew stronger by the second. The inscriptions on the walls now seemed to move, rearrange, as if they were adapting to something they couldn't quite understand yet. The key to waking the flame. It's closer than we think, Draxen said, his voice heavy with a weight he couldn't explain. His hand shook slightly as he touched an inscription that seemed to pulse with energy. Something was about to happen, and he could feel that his fate was tied to it all. As they got closer to the center of the room, a sinister presence surrounded them. The ground beneath them trembled, and a dark figure emerged from the shadows. It was a twisted creature made of ashes and fire. The Ashen Guardians had finally awakened, and they were ready to test the intruders. Naira stepped back, but Draxen stood firm. "We're gonna have to fight our way out of here," he murmured, his hand gripping his sword. "We can't back down now. Ember's heart depends on us." The battle was about to begin, and the echoes of the past, which they tried to avoid, were now coming to life right before their eyes. With a battle cry, the Ashen Guardians attacked, the room lighting up with blazing flames that seemed to consume everything. The fight was fierce, each move charged with adrenaline, and Draxen felt like he was getting closer to something way bigger than he'd ever imagined. Every blow exchanged, every heavy breath, brought him closer to a truth buried deep in the ashes of time. But as they fought, there was still a feeling that they were being watched. Something was beyond the battle, something observing them, waiting for the right moment to reveal Draxen and Naira's true fate. The silence lasted for a moment before a new sound filled the space. Something was awakening deep within the earth. The future was about to unfold, and Ember's heart wasn't the only secret waiting to be revealed. "What's happening?" Naira whispered, her voice trembling. Draxen didn't answer right away. He knew the path ahead was even more dangerous than anything they'd faced before. The price for awakening the ancient flames was becoming clearer by the second. But before they could take another step forward, a larger shadow formed. The Ashen Guardians pulled back, retreating before something even more powerful. Ember's heart was closer now, but what it meant for Draxen and Naira's fate was still a mystery. The wind whispered through the ruins, carrying a distant voice, as if calling them to a future beyond their understanding. What was at stake now was more than they realized. What would it take to claim Ember's heart? The answer was still far away, and the next step would be harder than they could have ever imagined. The silence that followed the retreat of the Ashen Guardians felt too deep to be real. The sound of their own hearts beating echoed in the vast room, and the flames that had once illuminated the temple now flickered as if they were trapped between worlds. Draxen, still holding his sword, looked around, the tension in the air almost palpable. The ruins of Valkarath weren't just falling apart. They were alive in a way he couldn't understand, as if the temple itself was breathing with them. Every stone, every wall, seemed to have a story to tell, and with the air thick with mystery, Draxen's instinct told him they were nearing a turning point. "Are we ready to move on?" Naira asked, her voice steady but with a slight tremor that betrayed her own nervousness. She knew something was unfolding, something beyond their control. Ember's heart was closer, but what they were facing now seemed to be more than just an ancient relic. Draxen took a step forward, his eyes fixed on the ancient inscriptions that stretched high, as if searching for something hidden, a truth buried deep. He knew there was more to this temple than just past glories. Something was watching them, something between worlds, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. The light of the flames reflected off the stones, revealing patterns that had once been obscured by the darkness of time. The air was thick with magic, an ancient energy that seemed to whisper in their ears. Draxen reached out, touching one of the walls, and the moment his fingers made contact with the cold surface, a wave of heat coursed through his body, followed by a sudden vision. A ruined city, flames dancing on rooftops, a hooded figure walking through the ashes, and at the center of it all, Ember's heart, glowing with golden light. And then a voice, distant yet clear, whispered in his mind, "You're not ready." Naira looked at him, her expression showing she knew something had happened, but there wasn't time to ask. "Draxen, what did you see?" His expression was distant, absorbing the vision that was still playing out in his mind. He didn't know what it meant yet, but it was clear to him that there was a truth there, a truth not ready to be revealed, but getting closer with every second. "The heart? It's not just a relic," Draxen said, his voice heavy with understanding and at the same time fear. "It's tied to something bigger. Something I can't control." The truth was beginning to take shape in his mind, but he knew it wasn't the right time to understand it all. Whatever was hidden in Emberis' heart wasn't just power. It was a key to something deeper, something beyond the control of any mortal. The city was waiting, the future was unfolding, and the battle was far from over. What he saw in his visions, with its flames and destruction, was a warning. The heart couldn't be awakened without consequences. Naira furrowed her brow, her eyes narrowing. So what do we do now? Can we just turn back? She knew, just like Draxen, that the answer was further away than they thought. Their fate had already been sealed, and the forces lurking in the shadows wouldn't let them turn back. What they had awakened couldn't be controlled or stopped now. The Ember's heart was more than just a relic. It was a catalyst for something much bigger. Something was about to happen, and all they could do was try to be ready for whatever was coming next. They walked through the temple, each step echoing like a warning. The feeling of being watched grew stronger with each movement, and the walls seemed to close in tighter with every second. The heart was near, but the guardians, the hidden forces that hadn't fully revealed themselves yet, were much closer than they realized. The journey they had started so long ago was nearing its climax, and what they did next would be crucial for the future of the entire world. As they reached the center of the temple, a new wave of heat enveloped them, more intense than ever. The air was saturated with power. "This is it," Draxen whispered, more to himself than to Naira. But before he could say anything more, a voice, deep and full of ancient wisdom, spoke directly into his mind. "The Ember's heart isn't a prize. It's a test. And those who try to control it don't know what they're awakening. The true power of the heart isn't in its flame, but in the sacrifice it demands. This is the secret the Ash Guardians protect." The voice fell silent as suddenly as it had appeared. Naira looked at Draxen, confused and anxious. What does that mean? But Draxen had no answer. He knew the heart wasn't just an object to be possessed. It was a force that could either destroy everything or save what remained. It had been made to test, to judge the character of those who sought it. And what he was about to learn could be more than he could comprehend in that moment. The future was once again ahead of them, but this time the answers they sought were wrapped in shadows. The true path was yet to be revealed, and the price for moving forward would be higher than they had ever imagined. The temple walls began to vibrate. The air around Draxen and Naira became thick, dense, as if space itself were being warped by the presence of the Ember's heart. An invisible tension spread to every corner, and the flames in the torches around them flickered as if they were about to go out. The temple seemed to be more than just an ancient building. It was an entity in itself, a living being, pulsing with the power of the ancestral forces that dwelled there. The feeling of being watched had grown so intense that Draxen almost felt invisible eyes upon him, waiting for his next move. Naira cautiously stepped forward, her footsteps echoing on the cold stones. Her eyes were fixed on the Ember's heart, now exposed before them on a stone pedestal. It radiated an intense, almost blinding golden light, pulling at her attention in a strange way, as if it wanted to draw her soul inside. The glow was hypnotic, but also carried a sense of impending danger. What they were about to do would not be simple. The relic in front of them wasn't just an object. It was a point of convergence between worlds, a key to something even the Ash Guardians hadn't fully understood. Draxen felt the weight of the decision on his shoulders. He knew the heart was crucial for the survival of the world, but he also knew its power was beyond anyone's control. The vision he'd had in the temple, of the ruined city and the flames consuming everything around him, still burned in his mind. The heart wasn't a gift, it was a trial. And the trial it imposed was sacrifice. The sacrifice of everything they were, everything they knew. The true power of the heart didn't lie in its golden flame or its enchanting beauty, but in the price it demanded from those who sought it. "Are you ready for this?" Naira asked, her voice soft, almost a whisper, as if she feared the room itself might hear. She knew Draxen's decision would shape the course of destiny, but she didn't know how much he was willing to pay. Whatever the heart represented, it was clear that their mission was no longer about simply finding the relic. It was about what they were willing to sacrifice to unlock its power. Draxen closed his eyes for a moment, trying to push away the thoughts haunting him. But when he opened them again, he knew what he had to do. He couldn't turn back. Not anymore. The Ember's heart wasn't a prize to be won, it was a test. A test they would inevitably have to pass if they wanted to save the world, or perhaps, if they wanted to save themselves. "I don't know what this will require of us, Naira," Draxen said, his voice heavy, filled with uncertainty. But I know we can't turn back now. No matter what happens, we have to keep going. The heart won't give us easy choices. The air around them started to shift. The temple walls shook again, stronger this time, and a new wave of heat surrounded them. The flames on the torches rose up to the ceiling, forming a golden wave of light that seemed to connect directly to the heart of Emberis. There was the presence of something much bigger, something that was manifesting from the depths of the temple, something watching Draxen and Naira, waiting for their decision. Before they could react, a powerful, deep voice echoed through the temple, reverberating off the walls and resonating in their souls. The voice was the same one Draxen had heard in his visions, but now it seemed closer, clearer. The heart of Emberis is no ordinary artifact. The voice spoke, its resonance sending shivers down their spines. It is the essence of balance, the force that keeps the worlds united. And those who seek its power must pay the price it demands. The temple started to change before them. The stones began to glow with a soft light, and ancient symbols started appearing on the walls, lighting the way to the heart. The pedestal where it rested slowly rose, as if moved by invisible forces, until the heart of Emberis was at eye level with Draxen. A powerful energy radiated from it, and Draxen felt his very soul being pulled toward it, drawn to the core of its power. "Do you understand what you're about to do?" The voice asked again, now more insistent. "Do you understand what the heart demands from you?" Draxen looked at Naira, and for a moment, the silence between them deepened. He knew what was at stake. He knew that the search for power always came with a price. But he also knew that the battle they were about to fight wasn't just about them. It was about the world, about those who depended on them to survive. The heart of Emberis was the key to restoring balance, but it was also a force of destruction. "I understand," Draxen replied, his voice firm now, determined. "We're ready to pay the price, whatever it is." As he stepped closer to the heart, the flames around them rose once more, illuminating the details of its shining surface. And the moment he touched the heart of Emberis, a wave of golden light spread throughout the temple, blinding them for a moment. And in the midst of that light, Draxen felt a deep pain, a pain that pierced his flesh and reached into his soul. It was the price of power. The cost of light. The golden light from the heart of Emberis enveloped Draxen and Naira in an explosion of energy so intense that their bodies could barely withstand it. It was as if the very essence of the temple had fused with their beings, taking them through an almost transcendental experience. Their senses were heightened, everything around them seemed to vibrate with a force almost tangible, and they could feel the truth of everything that was happening. The heart of Emberis wasn't just a key to power, it was a portal, a direct connection to the past, to the guardians who had protected the world in ancient times, and to the fates that intertwined in an invisible tapestry of hidden forces. Draxen felt his vision blur as the pain coursed through his body, but something else was happening too. Amidst the agony, images began to form in his mind, like flashes from a distant past. He saw the Ashen Guardians, ancient and powerful, battling the forces of darkness in a war that seemed endless. He saw the birth of the heart, a creation of the gods themselves, made to keep balance between the worlds. He saw the sacrifices that had been made, the blood spilled, the broken promises, and the fates intertwined with the very essence of the heart. And he saw something even deeper, a truth he didn't want to accept. The heart was connected to him, to his bloodline, in a way that transcended everything he had imagined. The heart of Emberis wasn't just a relic he needed to save the world, it was part of him. Draxen was the last guardian, and his mission, his true mission, wasn't just to restore balance, but to prevent the heart from falling into the wrong hands, because he, Draxen, carried within him the key to its true power, and that power, if misused, could destroy everything. As the pain consumed him, a voice echoed in his mind louder than before. It was a familiar voice, but now it was distorted, as if coming from another world. "Are you ready, Draxen? Are you ready for the sacrifice?" Draxen didn't answer immediately. He didn't know what it meant to be ready for this. How could he? The responsibility of carrying the fate of so many, of maintaining the balance between the forces of good and evil, was overwhelming. And what did the sacrifice the heart demanded mean? His life? His allies? Or something even more precious? Naira was right next to him, clearly struggling to stay on her feet. She'd been hit by the wave of energy, but she seemed to be fighting to resist the crushing force. Her eyes were locked on the heart, but there was something in her gaze that Draxen couldn't fully understand. There was understanding but also fear. They had come so far, but now, facing the truth, the question wasn't about how to use the heart anymore. The question was what they were willing to lose to stop the forces of darkness from taking over. Draxen, Naira said, her voice weak but full of determination. If this is what we need to do, if you're the only one who can stop this, then we do it together. No matter what happens. The world depends on you, but we can't let the sacrifice destroy us. Draxen looked at her, and for the first time in a long time, he saw something deeper in Naira's eyes. He saw his own pain, but he also saw her strength. She knew what was coming wouldn't be easy, but she was ready to go through it to the end, just like she always had. They were a team. They always had been. The heart of Emberis seemed to pulse harder as the tension grew. Draxen knew the moment had arrived. He had reached the point of no return. There was no more choice. The balance of the world depended on him, but the cost would be high. He had to accept what the heart demanded, because the forces of darkness wouldn't wait. The sacrifice was knocking at the door, and he was the only one who could make it. I accept, Draxen said, his voice full of resilience but also sadness. He looked at Naira one more time. But this isn't the end. It's just the beginning. The sacrifice is huge, but the destiny is bigger. With those words, he reached out and touched the heart of Emberis again. The pain grew, but now he was ready. He knew his destiny was finally revealing itself. Not as a relic to be used, but as a force he needed to master. No longer a tool, but a part of his very soul. He wasn't just fighting for the world's survival. He was fighting to be the guardian the world needed, even if that meant facing his own destruction. As the flames around the temple erupted in a burst of light, the truth was revealed. Whatever happened next, there would be no turning back. The future of the world was in his hands, but the path ahead would be uncertain. Draxen's sacrifice would be the key to restoring balance, or destroying it. The heart of Emberis, with its pulsing energy, surrounded Draxen in a burst of light that made him feel more alive than ever, but also closer to a darkness he never imagined facing. His sacrifice hadn't been easy, but he knew that by accepting his fate, by understanding that his lineage was more than just an ancient story, he was becoming part of something much bigger. Something that transcended his own existence, connecting the forces of good and evil, the balance of life and death. The future was uncertain, but he had taken his step towards what the world needed. He was the guardian. Naira, by his side, still carried the weight of the choice. She knew what was coming. The battle against the darkness wasn't over yet, and Draxen's sacrifice was just the beginning. They still needed to face the forces that wanted to corrupt the heart of Emberis, the same enemies that had thrown the world into an era of chaos. But now there was hope. Draxen's sacrifice had proven that, no matter how hard the choices were, there was always a chance to reverse the destruction. The path ahead was dark, but they weren't alone anymore. With the heart in his hands, Draxen looked to the horizon. He knew that even if his journey had just begun, the consequences of his actions would echo for generations. The forces of darkness were still in motion, and he needed to be stronger than ever. But now he was ready. The truth of his lineage had been revealed, and he knew the power inside him was the key to fighting the darkness. Draxen wasn't just fighting for his own survival. He was fighting for all those who still believed in hope, justice, and freedom. His destiny had been sealed, but he wouldn't face it alone. He had Naira, Riven, and everyone who had joined his cause. The war was still ahead, but he knew that as long as there was a guardian willing to fight, the darkness could never win. As the heart of Emberis shone with the light of redemption, Draxen felt the strength of his lineage running through his veins. He knew the sacrifice required was great, but the legacy of the Guardian still lived inside him. And even though the price was high, he was ready to pay it to restore balance and protect what was most precious: hope. Now, with the power of the heart in his hands, Draxen was ready to face whatever came next. No matter how tough it got. No matter how dark the road ahead seemed. He was the Guardian, and the world still needed him. The cycle of destruction could be broken, and he was the key to doing that. The forces of darkness might try to destroy everything, but they'd never understand that true strength doesn't come from magic or power. True strength comes from the courage to fight for something bigger than life itself. And as the sun set over the temple, Draxen and his allies got ready for what was coming. The great legacy of the Guardians would never be forgotten. And together they would face the darkness until the very end. If you like this story, don't forget to drop a comment, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications for more stories like this. See you in the next video.